So numbers wise, something I've been looking at that I think is a really good metric for how each doc's practice has grown with all these changes we've made. Net revenue per patient. So that's the net revenue that doc has brought in divided by the number of total patients. That's not just refractive exams. I'd prefer to do it with everything. And for me, from 2025 versus the first 4 months of this year, my net revenue per patient has gone up $50, which is a significant. Dr. Gers's has increased by 37. Dr. Ladd's has increased by almost $50, and Dr. Huey's has increased by $50. And, all those numbers, we all started around low 300s, and we're up in the mid to high 300s revenue per all patients. So that's a substantial increase.
Hello and welcome to the Chris Wolfe Podcast on iCode Media. Today I had a great conversation with Dr. William Sigmund. We talked about his practice. He's a new doc, but as you listen to him, he's got actually a lot of years of wisdom behind him because he's got systems in place in the practice and he's got really great mentors. Stay tuned and listen to who those mentors are. Well, I'll tell you, it's Dr. Gers, Dr. Huey, Dr. Ladd, and others. As always, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, share it with your friend, and support those who support us. The most common questions I get include, what ophthalmological codes or evaluation and management codes should I use? What ICD-10 codes do I need to bill with this CPT code? What CPT codes can be billed together and what can't? And my favorite, how do I manage a patient who has diabetes who comes in for a quote-unquote routine eye exam? These questions really highlight the confusion and uncertainty that serves as a daunting hurdle for providers, makes it more challenging for them to care for their patients and provide those patients with the best opportunity for a lifetime of ocular health and clear vision. That's why we built iCode Education for this specific purpose. Our mission is to provide optometrists with resources to help you understand disease states, revenue cycles, and billing and coding so that you can put that on autopilot and truly care for your patients. Check out iCodeEducation.com. That's EYECODE education.com. We've developed a premier billing and coding bundle that includes all of our billing and coding resources in one place. We also have a 10% discount code just for listeners of this podcast. Enter the coupon code EYECODEMEDIA22 at checkout. We'd love to work with you. Check out iCodeEducation.com.
Not all omega-3s are created equal, and we switched to TG Omegas because the triglyceride form offers superior bioavailability, and patients actually stay on it. For dry eye management, it's one of the few supplements we feel there's a clinically improved benefit for those patients. Smoother tear film with fewer symptoms. It's an easy upgrade to the standard omega-3 conversation, so check out TG3 for your patients and your practice.
Let me take a step back for a second and let's ignore the idea of who pays for what for a minute, and focus on what I'd like to kind of unpack for the audience is you are Dr. Gers's associate, and you've been out of school for how long?
Almost a year now. So I graduated May of last year. So technically almost exactly a year. I think tomorrow will be a year for my graduation. But I joined the practice in June of 2025 as a new associate. Signed on a little bit earlier than that and got started working with the practice in a background capacity, but started as a provider June of 25.
And then, as you come into the practice, I had talked to Robert in the fall of 2024, and we came in and did a workshop for he and the other two associate doctors, and kind of helped build some of the pillars around ocular disease management and some of the disease states that they were managing. But he had already, he was trying to set the stage for you to come in at that time. He had already picked you out. I'm not sure if you know this, so hopefully I'm not disclosing anything that he wouldn't have told you. But he had really high aspirations for you, and also for the other associate doctors that he had, and your other your colleagues that you work with, they're phenomenal.
Absolutely.
In the practice, and so one of the biggest challenges I see is when we work with practices is that the associates often come into the practice with a preconceived notion about what should be done, what shouldn't be done, how they're going to manage patients. And so sometimes it can feel heavy handed, or there is at least the concern for the owner doctor uh, to feel heavy handed. Like, I don't want to tell them what to do.
Sure.
What was that like? Did you feel any of that? Did you feel like Dr. Gorse is being heavy-handed? He's gonna listen, by the way. Or did you feel like the pillars were set up where it's like, "Oh, I understand why we're doing this." So unpack that a little bit for the audience.
100%. The best part that minimized any feeling of I feel pressure or like I've got this boss kind of controlling how I'm going to run my practice was that luckily Dr. Gerst and I have a similar vision, and I think that's why he wanted me to join the practice and why he was excited about it. But when I got into the interview process, he already had printed out, staple together a sheet of here's our office pillars. This is what we're about. This is where we're headed as a practice. And before I even sign on, are you on board with this, right? So I already bought in before that process. So I knew what I was getting into and I agreed with that mission. So that's step one there. And I'm so appreciative that he did that, right? You don't want to have this sale of whatever the practice will be and then pivot once they get in of what it is. So he was upfront about this is what our vision is, why we're doing it. Here's our pillars. We're trending this direction. We want to grow that. Are you willing to come in, start with that, help us grow that? And I was all on board for it.
So, again, I wanna ask a little bit more about how you felt when so pretend he's not listening.
Sure.
He did this when you were a student? Or were
Yes.
you already okay, so you were a 4th year student. If I remember right, like I said, you pretty much were. I don't think he had a contract at that time, but he lays this out. How does that make you feel?
Me, I feel like appreciative and thankful. I think a lot of people have this notion that a new doc wants to come in and run their own practice exactly how they want to do it. They want to have their own situation. And that's fair. You can absolutely do that. But for me, I said, I've got all these skills. I've got all this knowledge from school. And now I'm coming into a situation where I have an infrastructure to help me apply it. And that's the way that I thought of it. I didn't feel overwhelmed by it. I thought this seems great because I had all these rotations at school. You go to different private practices, you practice at school. I was at a hospital system at SLU University hospital system, and everyone practices differently, and you get different bits of information from every practitioner and every system. So I have all this knowledge, and I need to know how to funnel it to the patient the right way. And this pillar system and the office vision help me guide that. So to me, that was relief that I had a practice that I could go into that was willing to help me channel all my energy, my passion, and my knowledge to the patient the right way, rather than, if I go to starting cold on my own, I have all this knowledge, but I don't have the systems to implement it. So to me, it was that feeling of relief, like, wow, this is going to be something where I can, have my passions played out and feel like I've got the tools to make it happen.
How do you think, like, are you unique in terms of your peers, or do you think all of your peers would have reacted the same way?
Good question. Everyone likes to think they're unique, right? But I think I'm unique in that I do have a very analytical and data-driven mind. I always patient first, patient forward, and I'm very strong on patient education and how can I do that in a data-driven way. And that aligns exactly with this pillars, the protocols, and the system that we were trying to set up here. So I think other new students maybe not having that same data-driven approach, so they might not have been as invested as I was in helping expand and implement the protocols through the practice as a whole. But I think having some sort of pillar system for early docs is something that a lot of students would be receptive to. Like I said, we get all this information at school and these different practice philosophies, but if you can help them create their own pillars that align with the practice so that they understand a simple, effective, data-driven way to implement all the things they've learned, all the tools they have, I think that's huge, and it could be really freeing for a new doc to not feel as overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. And I think framing it the right way is really important. It's very hard, I think, to get people to actually do the work to build the pillar. So, like, that's what I've learned is that people often we have become. I think I don't know if it's as a profession specifically, but I think professions are like all professions are kind of not immune to this. But we've become sort of like somebody comes in with something new and they're like, you tell me how to do it. So you sit in a classroom, you listen to an expert talk about dry eye or AMD or whatever, and they just say, well, you just do this. And a lot of times the challenge is that you don't know if that expert is in the same type of practice you're in. Maybe that expert works for a large referral center and they don't have to manage the nuances of managed vision care and medical care. Maybe they're in a hospital setting or a school setting. Maybe they're a teacher at an institution and the same thing exists. Like they don't even care if it ever gets billed or paid for. And so they just do every single test under the sun. And so the reason I bring that up is that, most people, when we actually put them through the pillar process, it's very hard to break them out of, Chris, just tell me how to do it. So I get
Uh,
email literally every day that will say, "Can you just tell me what your glaucoma protocol is for your office?" And I'm like, "You're a PPP Pro member. You have access to COS. You should build it." Now, here's mine. I think it's really good. It works in my office, but it might not work in your office because of X, Y, and Z. And I don't know what X, Y, and Z are unless you're willing to sit down and actually have the conversation.
they want to just put your size 10 shoes on. They don't want to go, shop for their own and find the right, and that's challenging. That I get it, especially as existing provider. You've got you're set in your ways. You have the things that you've done in the past and they've worked for you. So that's where I think I had an advantage here, that I had a little bit of a clean slate where I could start from the ground up. But I already mentioned that I sort of have this analytical, data-driven mind anyway. So well, I've always been that way. When you get a rep come in and give you a presentation, my first thing is I go home and I want to look at the research myself, and I want to see, do I come to the same conclusion? But you're right, a lot of people aren't necessarily thinking that way, and that's not a knock against them. They want to implement that tool as efficiently as possible, but your system of creating your own opinion, your own data-driven thoughts based on your patient base, your practice, your team, is going to be a much better way to make it work in your practice, rather than trying to get this one-size-fits-all element.
So Dr. Gorse had that all built by the time you got there. What did you do to adjust it, to your philosophy? How did that work?
Great question. So I went through each of the pillars. I saw what Dr. Gers had already built for the practice as a whole, and I said, what if I clean slate this, make my own? Will I come to the same conclusion?
Smart.
And
Did he have you do that?
no,
He didn't.
I'm just kind of a dork. I was like, I want to do it.
No, man, that's really good. I think it's what it speaks to. I know you call yourself a dork, but I think what it speaks to is embracing the fact that you have to have the right mindset and the identity that you're going to own this thing. And that's one of the things that when we actually went in and did that workshop, is very hard because Dr. Huey and Dr. Ladd and Dr. Gorse and you all will have, when your approach to dry eye, you're going to all have a slightly different, what we would call triggers, that is something that is existential to you. And this has become more clear to me even since we've done the workshop a year and a half ago. It has to be existential, otherwise it ticks down, and you can ignore it if something else is more important. And so, like, for the case that what I like to highlight for people is if you have a retinal tear, a symptomatic retinal tear, every single optometrist, it's existential that I have to deal with this today. I don't care if the patient says, I will not pay you for anything else. I only want my managed vision care plan. That's all you're getting from me. Internally, the doctor is looking at the Optos saying, I see a retinal tear. I have to treat this. I don't care who's paying anymore. I just need to treat it, right?
Yep.
Or I need to take care of this patient. Now, there's a lot I've probably allowed the listeners to sort of like, well, I wouldn't do that. Whatever, fine. But the point is that like it has to be existential. Now, those are like uh, black lines. Um, but in dry eye, in AMD, in glaucoma suspects, in, choroidal nevi, that we start to gray the lines between what every optometrist wants to do. So because of that, that means that Dr. Ladd might do something slightly different than Dr. Sigmund, than Dr. Gross, et cetera, right? And
Yep.
so we might actually have these little variabilities among each other. But how do we get the practice to function in a way that like will elicit um, that actual existential finding for each of you, even though it might be slightly different? I think you have to go through that.
I agree. Yeah, it's been critical for me because I appreciated the framework and the pillars and the triggers, but like you said, if I don't believe in them, I'm not going to convey that belief to the patient and get them to follow through with it. So our goal is to have, whether our pillar or our triggers are different between the doctors, whatever your triggers are, whatever your beliefs are, that has to then spring the next step, which should be for dry eye. They should be coming back for that dry eye evaluation. And where something that we've been working on is having the team hold us accountable as the docs for that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
we all have scribes. We have our patient care coordinators who check out our patients and do the scheduling. And so some feedback we got from them was, we get it. We hear you guys talking about the pillars. We understand it, but you guys aren't always doing it. So help us out with that. And so us as docs trying to work together to be more consistent, keep each other accountable, but then trying to give the agency to the scribes and the front of house team to say, hey, if you're the scribe and I'm walking out of the room and I saw, this trigger and I didn't tell them to come back, tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, did you want this patient to come back for the dry eye eval? I know you saw, 3+ SPK. And that's something that we're trying to work on as the next step to hold each other accountable as a team, because that causes frustration for the rest of the staff because they feel like we're preaching all this to them and then we're not practicing it. And that's absolutely reasonable. So we want to give them the agency to feel like they can do that. It's a little challenging, obviously, sometimes as a younger technician talking to the senior doctor, and you don't want to feel like you're telling them what to do, but trying to give them that agency. And then we've implemented one-on-one meetings monthly with the management team and each staff member. So then that's hopefully a safe space where they can voice those frustrations. Boy, a few times this month, Dr. Gerst or Dr. Sigmund, didn't quite follow through on their pillar or their trigger for this. And then we can bring it up as at the doctor meeting so they don't feel like they're getting, calling us out. So that's something that's been helpful for us.
Shout out to Aaron Warner. When I came to his practice, he is like phenomenal at this. Like his team is really, really good at this. And, it's kind of encompassed in step 5 of COS, although we should probably get a little bit more detailed in it, because what happens is you have created, it's too strong of a word. And but you've created disciples for your message, right? And more importantly, often they believe in what you do more than you believe in what you do. And so now and like I get goosebumps when I think about that, because it's like It's like they believe that there's nobody better than you to take care of that patient that's sitting in front of them, and it is an injustice if you don't do it. And so that's why they're like, "Come on, Dr. Sigmund, what are you doing?" And so like, um, but it's true. Like you watch these people, and as you start to see the shift of like we are describing why for the patient it's the best thing for them, and they're coming on board, and then they're like, "Why didn't you talk about this?" And they're like, they don't understand all the other stuff that's going on in our brains, right? Like, not because they're not smart people, but they're not understanding like, well, hey, I had to get to this other thing and I had to get to that other thing. And so this did get lower on the totem pole. And they're there to like stop that and
Yep,
say, yeah, all these other things are important, doc, but this you said was important too. It's time to own up to it. And
100%.
so how do your patients respond when that happens?
They respond well. I haven't had any negative interactions to that. Sometimes you get a chuckle, oh, they're doing a good job. They're staying active, and I always try to skew that positive by thanking whoever,
For sure.
corrects me. And I think that makes it great. You express the value of that scribe to the patient. Then, in the room, I'm about to leave. They say, "Oh, Dr. Sigmund, you mentioned some collarettes. Did you want to talk to the patient about Demodex? Thank you so much. You're right. I got something else on my mind. I do need to talk to you about this," and praise them for it. And
I love
then
it.
that turns it into a really positive experience for everybody. And I haven't had any patients, feel uncomfortable with that or say, "Oh, are you sure you know what you're doing?" Nothing like that. They understand that we're busy and that their job is to help us. And that's part of the help they can provide. So
Yep. I love it. And I think the way you handled it is so good because oftentimes I'll see where practices have tried to do this and the doctor kind of not admonishes it, but they kind of poo-poo the advice. Like and all it is really it's what people are looking for in AI now in a lot of cases. Like we're looking for data and trends that we otherwise might miss or overlook that will say like, "Hey, have you thought about this? Oh, that's really good insight." As opposed to maybe like, "Nah," and then you just crush them. Like you just crush them of like, "No, I've got you here. We built the pillar together as a team.
yep.
We all agreed on why this was important. You listened to me articulate why I thought this was in the best interest of the patient. And now you're just there to remind me about the thing I already said I was beholden to. And if I crush that, if I'm the guy like, no, I'm the doctor, I know better, like that will crush your team. But when I listen to how you handle it, it's like the patients love it because they know you've built systems in place to address every single thing they've got going on. And they also see you as a human. I don't think any patient will actually see that as a negative, although a lot of doctors I think would worry about it. So I love how you handle that. It's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this then. So let's explore a little bit before I get into any competition you may have within other doctors. You were really excited. So when I saw you guys at the Vision Source Exchange, both of you, well, first you guys came up and I love that you did this, not because it fed anything from me, but you were actually trying to seek like a logical reasoned answer on a new piece of technology that you wanted to have and incorporate into the practice, but you wanted to do it in a way, and this is what we advocate all the time is you wanted to do it in a way that was going to actually add value to your patients, then add value to the practice, and was going to have some sort of ROI based on real data. So you came to me and said, "Hey, here's what I got going on. Here's where we were. Here's where we are." So share the kind of before story dates and progress that you've made within KPIs. Maybe pick one of your favorite KPIs and how you made movement in that over the last 6 to 12 months.
Presbyopic patients looking for a simple, comfortable daily option often do really well with Clarity One Day multifocals. We've had great success with it because the lens delivers stable vision at all distances and doesn't require complicated fitting strategies. In my practice, it's a reliable choice when we want something straightforward that still provides very good visual quality. If you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed and start running a safer, more profitable practice, here's the next step. First, book a strategy call with us, Practice Performance Partners.
We'll uncover the biggest risks and opportunities in your practice. Then, choose the package that fits your goals. From there, we'll get you launched with confidence, with clear systems, with expert support, and with peace of mind knowing your practice is protected and set up to grow. Don't wait until something goes wrong. Book your strategy call with us, Practice Performance Partners, today.
Absolutely. Our biggest improvement, the biggest shift, and the simplest change we made that's been a huge impact was our level 3 to level 4 ratio and our KPIs. That to me is such low-hanging fruit as a practice. The way that we talk about it is it doesn't change how we do patient care. We're already giving that same great quality patient care. It's a change in how we can just be more accurate in our coding and billing. So when in 2024, when you came into the practice and first started working with us, most of our providers were 10 to 1, 20 to 1 in terms of a lot more level 3s than level 4s. And for our patient base, that should be more like 1 to 1. That's based on prevalence data of our patient base as well as kind of Medicare guidelines, right? Of how many we should have. So we looked at that and said, well, what are we missing? And for us, it was two simple things. Number one, the scribes not understanding when to apply what code. You had used the example earlier of a doc getting a new piece of equipment and saying, just tell me what to do. What's the simple way? And that's what I kept getting from our techs and scribes when I would tell them, hey, why did you put a 3 here and not a 4? And they would say, oh, well, all the dry eyes are a 3, right? So I just did that. They wanted and I'd say, well, no, because this, and this, it moves it to a 4 here. And they said, well, I always thought that just all the dry evals were going to be 3s. And they wanted that simple answer. And so I had to start from the ground up and say, let's scrap everything you guys know about coding. They've got 3, 4, 5 years of experience of different ways to code, and different scribes told them this and that. And I said, let's start from the ground up and getting into the why of the coding. And I tried to break it down as simple as I could, and that's helped them a ton. Then with the doctor team, I found most often what they were getting wrong was actually a really human thing, which was they felt like that exam was a 3, not a 4, or a 2.
Bro, you're speaking my language.
Not a 4. And so in my office here, I share an office space with Dr. Huey and Dr. Ladd. And so we will be charting in here, and once a week, I will go back and audit 1 day of charts for every doctor and just go through. I usually just go to the medical appointments because we do a really good job with our kind of 92014 exams and refractive exams. But I go to the medical visits for 1 day a week, 5 to 10 to 12 appointments for 1 day for a doc. It's not a big task. And then I take notes on anything that we could have done better. How could we have stuck to our pillars better? Was there a coding change that could have been made? And I'll just slide my chair over and say, hey, well, what were you thinking on this exam? I think that maybe a level 4 could have been used here because of this. What did you think? And the most common answer I got was, well, I don't know. I just didn't spend that much time with them, and it just kind of felt like a level 3. And that's nothing wrong that they've done. That's their compassion and their sense of how that should go. But my response would always be, I love that you're practicing with your heart, but Medicare and the coding guidelines are pretty clear, right? It says nothing about how the exam felt, or, you can do time-based coding, but we're doing medical decision-based coding. So it doesn't ask how long you spent with the patient. It is, 3 simple steps: the problem, the data, and the risk, right? And if you meet any of those criteria for the right code, then that's the code you should use. And that's what's correct, not how it feels or not. So, and that was huge. And, every day I'd be sitting here charting, and I'd get a little question. Hey, do you think this could be a 3 or 4? Or should I add a G22 here? And because, you said, I'm a kind of a dork and I want to get into the weeds of it.
No, I did not say that. You said that. I said, don't label yourself like that. I've got big plans for you, Dr. Sigmund, and you don't even know it. I got big plans for you.
I've kind of become the
This is like an interview. I didn't even know I was going to do an interview for other things. I've got big plans for you already. I love it.
good. You got my number.
All right.
And I've kind of become the in-house coding expert for them, and so they'll ask me questions and keep my door open to the scribes. And the more examples they give me, and I can walk them through the codes and the decision making, they're starting to get it. And so, I told you we started in 2024. Two of our docs were above 20-1. Level 3s to level 1, so significantly more level 3s. And then
Level 4s, yeah.
the third doc was, I'm sorry, yeah, level 3 to 4. And then the third doc, he was about 10-1. So still a lot higher than that 1-1
Really?
ratio we're
I
looking
guess I don't
for.
remember that. Yeah.
Last year, 2025, everyone came down. I joined the practice. I was at around a 2-1 ratio. The other docs were 2 to 3-1 ratio. So significant improvement, orders of magnitude, obviously there. And then as we've continued to focus on this in our weekly doctor meetings, these little conversations we've been having, getting the techs and scribes on board so that the right code's getting put in the first time, because there's always that resistance to not change it if you're unsure. So if it gets put in right the first time, that's the easiest way, right? We are now all within a 10th or a 20th of that 1-1 ratio. So we're all around 1.2 to 1.4, and right where we should be. And
So cool, man.
I said that's the low-hanging fruit, right? We're doing the same thing, the same quality care we've been giving to patients, but I mean, 10 times more level 4 codes, which is, an extra little bit of reimbursement. That's a low-hanging fruit for us to increase our profitability as a practice, but not sacrifice patient care at all, keep that same quality care. It's just us being more accurate, which is there's no way that that's a bad thing, right? We're just being more accurate, right?
Well, so here's what's going through some listeners' mind, and I want you to respond. But if I change my coding behavior where I was using 10 times more level 3s than I was level 4s, and now I'm using equal amounts of level 3s and level 4s, do you worry about an audit?
I think everyone worries about audits. You should be, because it's something that's a hassle and a stress and concerning. But I had the other docs ask me this question, so she won't mind that I'm telling this story. Dr. Ladd, at one point, she dipped below the 1-1, and she was at like 0.99, right? And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm kind of stressed about this. Is this going to be like an automatic audit trigger?" And I was like, "Hey, it's okay to be stressed about that, but what we're doing is so defensible because we are doing it the right way." So this is something I haven't quite talked about yet, but I'm training the scribes and myself, and I'm trying to get all the docs and scribes on board on this. Of every chart shouldn't just have the documentation of what we're doing and why we did it, but I want every medical diagnosis to say chronic stable or chronic
Love it.
progressing
Love it.
or acute complicated. And then what, everybody it has
Just you
already been
dragging over a little extra comment every single
exactly.
time. Love it.
So it is easy and expressed. So if you are getting audited and they look at your level 4s, and every single one says 2 or more chronic stable, and you prescribed a medicine or you referred for surgery, like
Yep.
audit me,
It's clear.
because we've done
Yep.
it accurately and properly, right? You still don't want it because it's still a hassle and a time waste and an expense, but we're doing it correct. And she asked, but yeah, we're not at that 1-1 ratio anymore. So even if we're doing it accurately, is that wrong? And I was like, absolutely not. Do you think a glaucoma ophthalmologist is seeing 1-1, or are they probably seeing a lot more 4s? Because everyone that a glaucoma specialist seeing is on drops, probably, right? So they're
That's
seeing more 4s than 3s, and that's not wrong because they're coding it accurately, as long as they're coding it right in the chart. Now,
Correct.
if they should be 3s and they're coding it 4s, there's the problem. But you are identifying the right patient for the right code, and that's accurate. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So
Love it. Love
Yep.
it. So then now I got 2 more questions because I'll be respectful of your time. The first one is, do you guys have competitions, like not in terms of like, you don't want to have we're not having competitions about like patients per se, but like, are you like, hey, well, why aren't you, Dr. Ladd, why aren't you diagnosing, we said that 30% of our patient population has MGD. We all agreed that that was the case, but you're seeing patients back at this often. Like, do you guys have any of that? And I'm doing more, or vice versa? Any
Yeah.
of that inter-office
Just a
competitiveness?
little bit of competitiveness and rivalry, right? You want to be
Are you
careful
the
not
little
to.
brother? Are you
I
the
think
little
so.
brother?
Yeah, I'm kind of there's all respect between us, but I'm kind of the little brother and pest because I'm the one doing the data and then presenting it. So we have a doctor meeting each week with the four docs, our office manager, and then our lead technician, and she also does some HR work for us. So kind of the upper management of the office, and each week we go over all of our KPIs that we've ratios of codes, percent of gonioscopy being billed, and all those things, and saying, are we hitting our metrics, which again are based on prevalence data, the number of patients we see, and all that. So, it's just, oh yeah, dip down a little bit this week, and I try to praise when we're hitting our goals, which we have been a lot lately, so it's been really easy. And then when people aren't hitting goals, I try to identify that before the meeting, talk to them one-on-one about it. So I don't want them to feel like, they're getting called out. Sometimes it'll be sort of a fun experience, not an angry call out. And then I try and devise a theory or dig into their charts and figure out what changed. Sometimes it's just random variance, and that happens, right? You just had a week where you didn't have a lot of people who needed, the macro CT, and you look back and yeah, your average age of your patients last week was 27 instead of 48. That's just how the cookie crumbled, right? Or sometimes it's a systemic issue where we say, actually, you know what, you had like 6 people this week where there were drusen that you noted in the chart, but you didn't mention to bring them back for the macro CT or for the macular testing. What happened there? And it's, I was a little distracted that week, or I had a new scribe, and so there was a little bit of miscommunication between us. So trying to, if I see someone not hitting their numbers, help get them to a solution, or what can we do to get you there. But then sometimes, it's just fun. Like, hey, Dr. Gersh hit them all this week, and, you guys are sliding a little behind. Let's pick it up. We do the same thing with capture rate too. We've been working on increasing our capture rate for glasses, and that's something too that we try to have fun with, and we track multiple pairs, and we track just overall capture rate, and just trying to improve that overall, and keep patients getting their glasses in-house. For us, that's twofold. Everyone wants patients to get their glasses from you, but for us, the primary driver there is because we know we're going to get them the right quality of glasses, and that's how we start that conversation with patients. And then of course it's a practice builder too, and it is increasing your profitability, but that's another thing that we track there, that we have fun with, and just see who's hitting the best numbers there each week, and that's something fun that we do. So
That's awesome. So then I want to wrap it up with kind of the final number, because this has all been about patient care and processes and procedures, but
yep.
you can share the actual number of like dollar number for the practice or not. But you said, hey, we are up in collections, we're up this percentage, and in net, we're up this percentage.
Yeah.
So that all of this is translated into being more effective with your time, more effective with your coding, so that you can continue to deliver the care that you want to be able to care for your patients. But that's also translated into being able to support the practice more. Tell me a little bit about that.
Percent. So the way we've thought about it is cost of goods are rising, reimbursements are stable or going down. And so what can we do to increase profitability so that we can, at the baseline, continue to give the great care we have been giving, because the cost is rising. So we need to offset that somewhere to be able to give the same great care, spend the same amount of time with patients. And number two, can that free up more capital to bring in new equipment, new technology, more staff to, again, improve the patient experience? So numbers wise, something I've been looking at that I think is a really good metric for how each doc's practice has grown with all these changes we've made. net revenue per patient. So that's the net revenue that doc has brought in divided by the number of total patients. That's not just refractive exams. I'd prefer to do it with everything. And for me, from 2025 versus the first 4 months of this year, my net revenue per patient has gone up $50, which is a significant. Dr. Gers's has increased by $37. Dr. Ladd's has increased by almost $50, and Dr. Huey's has increased by $50. And, all those numbers, we all started around low 300s, and we're up in the mid to high 300s revenue per all patients. So that's a substantial increase. And again, none of the changes we've made really increase overhead costs here. So this is theoretically essentially pure profit here. These are coding and billing changes. These are philosophy changes to get more people brought back for the care that they need in terms of dry eye or macular or glaucoma. This isn't us, bringing in an IPL and billing it a whole bunch more, where that adds overhead as well. Now we can get there. Now that we have more profit, we're bringing on some new technology soon, and we're excited about that. But this was all, like I said, low-hanging fruit. It didn't require any capital investment. So,
yeah, it's so awesome. Well, I think your story is compelling. You're obviously speaking my language, and you have implemented systems in a way that allows you to free up and utilize your skills to the fullest extent of your knowledge, education, and training. And I think, for the listeners, when you do it this way, it allows you to take care of the patient and then plan for the next thing and plan for how that thing is going to impact your patient care and impact how you're managing a patient with a specific disease state. And I love it. I love the entire dynamic of the office. Kudos to Dr. Gors that, he's a really good leader.
100%.
And he's put the right people on the team all across the board. And he's a quiet guy, but kudos to him. Kudos to you for seeing that and being able to kind of run with it on both of those aspects. And then also to the other two doctors, I could totally see, I don't know them well, but I know them well enough to feel like, I know kind of how they probably reacted at first, but then my guess is that you sort of were able to build trust with them so that they start relying on you. I can kind of see those conversations. I'd love to talk to them about it too, but tell them I said hey when you talk to them. And
Absolutely.
I can totally see that you kind of earned your way and kind of earned their respect so that they listen to you. And that's unique, man. That's unique to come into that scenario and for them to start to listen to you and ask you about your opinion. That's pretty awesome on all sides. You guys got a great practice. It's exciting to see it kind of come alive even more.
Thank you very much. I know that I can say for the whole team here and Dr. Gers included, we're really thankful because you guys, your programs and you particularly answered a lot of questions for us and gave us the runway to get this plane off the ground. And so we really appreciate that and excited about continued partnership and working with you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for coming on.